Good afternoon, and welcome to Candid Conversations with me, Linda Burhans, and my guest today, Dianne Allen. So,
Hi, Linda.
hi,
Go
I'm
ahead.
so glad you're here today. So, this is our third Candid Conversation because I can't fit all the guests I want on my radio show all the time. So I said, let's start another podcast, and I just want to bring interesting speakers and just interesting people to the community, and especially to my caregivers, because sometimes we get tired of just talking about caregiving stuff. So today we're going to talk about gratitude, right, Dianne?
That's right. Gratitude and how to be in flow.
So tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Well, I'm an intuitive mentor. I've also been a therapist for substance abuse and mental illness. I'm also a minister. I do lots of different things. I do a lot of holistic help for people. And so I use all of my education and skills to help people live their highest, best life, no matter what it is. So I love talking about these topics, and I just think that life is grand.
Life is grand, and gratitude is such a big part of it.
Yes.
I had a friend that used to say gratitude is a natural antidepressant.
Yes.
And it is, because you can't have bad thoughts in your head if you're having gratitude in your head at the same time.
Right. They can't coexist.
Yeah. And I remember years ago, I was going through a really tough time, and people would say to me, "How you doing?" And I would say, "I'm hanging in there." And one day I thought, who wants to be hanging in there? That's horrible. So ever since that, I always say I'm joyful and grateful. And sometimes people looked at me with their heads a little cocked or something, and I said, some days I'm joyfully challenged, but I'm always grateful.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what has gratitude meant in your life?
Oh, gratitude means a lot, but I want to say something that has to do with the hanging in there part that popped in my head, and then I'll get to the gratitude part. Is the other phrase people use all the time that really is not serving them is "I love you to death."
To death.
You're right. We don't want to love people to death. We want to love them in life, right? And in vibrancy or something. But "I love you to death" doesn't serve. It's like it's strangling somebody. So whenever somebody says that, I cringe a little bit. Like, no, don't say it that way.
Well, people don't think about it. They just start saying those silly little sayings, and I don't think many times people realize how powerful your words are.
Well, our words create our reality. So if we are using ineffective words, we're going to have an ineffective life, and that's not the goal.
I had a friend of mine. She's walking around all day long, every day. I'm tired. I said, guess what? You're tired.
Totally.
Guess what?
Oh my God, yes.
You got to turn that around. I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. I feel good.
Right. So gratitude. We'll get. I'll come off my tangent, but gratitude is one of those things that in my world has many more dimensions to it than what most people consider. Like, most people think of gratitude as, keeping a gratitude journal or what am I grateful for today? And that's great. And that's 1/3 of how I see it, if that much, because there's so much more. And I think sometimes we as humans, we get caught in a rut, or we get caught in a way of thinking, and we don't really examine what we're doing or how we're doing it and why it even matters.
Right.
And so gratitude for me comes from the inner state of our natural being, which is joy. So our natural state is joy. So if we're feeling anything other than joy or experiencing anything other than joy, then we're in an altered state. Now, you can have an emotion. You can be angry and still have a joyful heart, because emotions and states are different. But gratitude is one of those things that changes everything. And we really want to understand that there's different kinds of gratitude, and there's different ways to have gratitude. So the most common one is that gratitude journal, like, this is what I'm grateful for today. And we can list off the things like life, my family, my friends, but that's on the surface, because there's other things that are deeper, right? Like Mother Earth sustains us. Right. Like the fact that our heart keeps beating even when we're not paying attention,
right?
And all of those things. And so there's a gratitude for the things that are working, that are serving. But there's two other
about that for a second. So when you were talking about gratitude journals, so I just was going through some boxes of my granddaughters, and I found a gratitude journal that she had years ago. Mm-hmm. But what she would do at nighttime, she would write down on the left-hand side of the page 3 things that she was grateful for. She was like 13. Right. But on the right-hand side, she would write 3 things that she was grateful for in advance.
Yes.
She was always setting herself up. Like, I'm grateful for the fun time I'm going to have on Saturday. I'm grateful for the test I aced.
Right. Yep.
I think it's a very interesting thing to think about.
Right. Because if we can project it into the future and then backcast it and look back at it, then we actually are exercising what we call our integrity muscle, that we are living what we say we are, and we're doing it from both sides. And so that's a very effective way to stay in flow, which we're going to get to here in a minute. So there's 3 kinds of gratitude. Gratitude for the stuff we're grateful for. Then the other gratitude that is important that I think a lot of people overlook is being grateful in the face of things that aren't working so well. Like, not grateful for the thing necessarily, but grateful in the face of that thing. It could be, or something, it doesn't feel so good, or something happens with a loved one or with ourselves, or just, you look out at the world and there's lots of things that we could look at and go, it doesn't feel so good. But can we hold a space of gratitude in our heart and in our mind and in our soul, even in the face of dealing with those things or looking at those things or experiencing those things? And I know a lot of people who typically, when they start talking about gratitude, they shift it, well, I have to be grateful for it. There's a lesson in it. Well, there might be a lesson in it, but that doesn't mean you have to be grateful for the thing. It's grateful in the face of the thing, right? And a lot of people miss that. And then what I see they do is kind of go into this denial, they pretend like it's not there. And that causes more trouble. So I like people to realize we can be grateful when things aren't necessarily going great. In fact, usually that's a good exercise.
And you know what? When things are not going well, things are really a mess, every hour, a couple hours, there is something good in there to be grateful for. There is something that comes out of it if you're paying attention.
Right. Paying attention is key here. Yes. You got to pay attention and be looking for it, because our reticular activating system in our brain seeks what we're looking for. So if I'm looking for things to be all upset about, I'll find them. If I'm looking for gratitude, I'll find it, because the brain is hardwired to look for what we're looking for, to find it for us. So if we're going to find gratitude, then it will show it to us, but we have to be willing to look for it first.
Well, every morning I take my good morning Seminole picture.
Yes,
and
you do.
It's there waiting for me. And I'm grateful for that every morning.
And every morning I look for me. And Linda, every single morning I look for that picture. Where's Linda's picture today? And if I don't get online early and I'm later, I go find it. I go, I have to see the picture of the morning, because not only do you take beautiful pictures, but it calms my heart. Oh, beauty. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so the other third kind of gratitude that I think is really important is gratitude for gratitude's sake. Okay. That we hold the space of gratitude. We're not grateful. We are the gratitude itself. Some people give love and receive love, but I'm talking about being the love. So it's being the gratitude, that's our essence, and waking that part of us up. And a really cool way that I learned how to do that, for me, when I first learned all these things, I'm well, how do you grow that just inherent state of gratitude, right? And the way I do it is, whenever I walk through a doorway, a threshold doorway, whether the door's open or open or close a drawer. So drawers or doors. Every time I do, I say thank you in my mind or out loud. And so I'm always going, thank you, and not for anything, just thank you, to be in that space of open, receptive thankfulness, gratitude. And when we're open and receptive so consistently, because when we're walking through our office or our home or in and out of our car, or every time I open the drawer and I say thank you, it keeps my mind and my consciousness headed to that place. And again, seeking all the different ways to experience the higher level gratitude. And that's gratitude for life itself, not
because
for things.
We're so full of distractions.
Yes. Yes, there's distractions everywhere.
And some people just get sucked into that whole distraction all day long.
All day long. And then in nighttime, they sit down and write 3 things they're grateful for, which is a great way to stop the mess. But when the train's going down the hill, we probably want to have some other things happening.
Right.
So that we can go, okay, well, let's look at how we can keep the sustained space, bigger space for gratitude, for being open and being receptive, so that then our brain keeps looking for those things that will serve us and help be resourceful. And then life becomes way more fun.
So how do you suggest to people that they start this? Like you could do with the doors. That's a great way. The doors and the drawers. I love that.
Yeah, that's how I started, is really paying attention, is finding a way that your mind can be reminded about gratitude often throughout the day. Like I have little Post-it notes. They're right here on my desk. And every Monday I look at my calendar and I say, okay, what kind of frame, what kind of affirmation, what kind of sentence would help me stay in the way, in my flow for the week. And so this week it's all about doing all the simple little things because I have a high profile brain and, and it keeps going. And I'm like, well, and then I don't do all the little things and then they annoy me. So this week we're focusing on doing all the little things. And so you could write a little affirmation for yourself. I am grateful today, or for everything I am grateful, or I am gratitude itself. And you write it in first person, present tense, I am.
And yes, I am is important.
And you put it everywhere around you. You put it so that your brain is constantly reminded. So even if you're not reading it, when your eyes catch it, it micro triggers your brain to remind it, right? And so you don't even have to say it. And when you do say it, or when you do read it, it's even more powerful, right? But when you have constant reminders, your brain will start taking over and start getting some momentum. Then pretty soon, when you really need to dial into it, it's more available to you.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's like your library is there.
Yes.
A cousin came to visit me recently. I have lots of little signs around my house and on my mirror and this and that. And, like my favorite sign on my mirror is you're looking at the person responsible for your happiness today. Woohoo!
Yep. That's right.
And so my cousin came and she stayed here for like 4 days and she was like, I feel happier when I'm here. Now, she has a lovely home and lovely everything, but she wasn't surrounding herself with joyful things. She wasn't seeing the joy that was there every day. It's been a tough year with people with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
People that she lives in a much colder area. And
wow.
She was really locked in the house for a long time. So I can understand that, but I think people have to really realize that it is in their choice.
It's totally in our choice. And it's totally in our choice to start at any time, no matter how depressed we are, how locked in we feel, or whatever's going on, because our experience starts on the inside. So it takes making a decision to say, okay, I'm shifting this.
Right.
And even if it's one little tiny bit a day, that's why I have little Post-it notes. I have stuff all over my house too. Not only notes, but things that remind me. Like I have my little frog. See, he's right here, my frog. And for me, frog stands for fully rely on God. So every time I see this, it reminds me. And then I have a couple seashells and I have things that have little remembrances that trigger my brain to stay going down the road that I desire it to be on. That's resourceful, that serves me.
And I think people that are listening to this today need to realize how important your words are. Mm-hmm. They say that I am are the two most powerful words in the English language because whatever you say after that becomes your reality.
Completely correct.
And I don't think people realize that, though. And people walk around a good portion of the day kind of beating themselves down.
Oh, yes, because we're in a culture that teaches us to look outside of ourselves for the answer, not to trust our inner intuition or knowing or knowledge, and then to beat ourselves up because of if the culture can get us to beat ourselves up, then they can control us.
Yeah.
So that it takes being willing to really shift what we've been taught our whole life and go, you know what? What if what we were taught isn't exactly it? What if we need to change this a little bit?
Yeah.
And be willing to do it instead of get all, upset about it. Like, okay, so we were taught the wrong thing and we've lived it for 10, 20, 50, 100 years.
Get over it.
Today is a new day. Let's go.
Right. Just get over it. And it's funny too. I'll have a meeting with somebody and everybody thinks, oh, Linda Burhan's got the most fabulous life in the world. I've been through my stuff.
Right.
I've been through my peaks and valleys and whatever. But here I still am. Standing tall, feeling good, feeling joyful.
Right.
It's my choice.
Absolutely. It's your choice. And because you make that inner choice and you set the mental intention and focus, then the rest of you, it's kind of like the body and the rest of our life just kind of has to come along with it. Like it doesn't really have much of a choice. It has to go with us, with our mind. And so, yes, we have ups and downs. Like we're human. When I have a hard day, people go, oh my God, Diane's having a hard day. I'm like, well, I'm human too. Like we're all human. We all have ups and downs. And that's not the point. The point is, how do we mentally handle it? And what are we doing in the ups and downs that serves us? And how can we use it?
And so much you just said is earlier too is about letting go, because I could have had a bad day yesterday. It doesn't have to make today a bad day. I
Right.
don't have to
Yes.
carry that from yesterday over to today. It could be just that was today, that was yesterday, and yesterday's done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people get into that slump, and the day after day after day, it's the same sad news. It's the same.
Yep.
But when you start looking, it's just like for me when I start looking with the pictures. I see flowers where other people don't see them. I see flowers that are little teeny tiny because I'm trained for that now, kinda. I mean, 7 years I've been taking those pictures. But anybody could do that.
Yes.
We're surrounded by a beautiful world, unbelievably beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, Diane, what do you do when you have that tough day, or things don't turn out exactly the way you expect them to be?
Well, the first thing I do is honor it. I honor that and realize that that's just the way it is, and that's totally okay because it's the way it is. And say, okay, this is reality, but it doesn't have to have power over me. And say, okay, now what am I going to do? And then usually I usually journal and say, okay, what's coming through? And then I make a decision of how I want to handle it. So I address whatever I need to personally, humanly. And then the rest of me is, okay, how can I use this for the greater good? How can I see the good, capital G good, like the greater picture in whatever's happening? But not until after I've honored my experience and honored my feelings and honored what I'm going through. Then
I mean, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel bad.
Totally. I work with gifted people and we all have emotion. Most of us have emotional overexcitability. So we're, like a Publix commercial in the holidays can get us to cry. And we cry really easy. We laugh really easy because our emotions are very intense. And so it's okay to have intense emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated. It's not okay, or it's not helpful to get stuck there. So it's important to keep on going. Like, okay, I always say, if you're driving from Florida to California, don't turn around in Texas. Keep on going, keep having your feelings, and then say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And then how do I want to handle it? And the first thing I do is offer a gratitude for the fact that I can have a feeling, gratitude for the fact that I have awareness, and gratitude for the fact that I have total choice over how I'm going to move forward. What am I going to do? Yeah. And in that moment of gratitude for my choice gives me all the possibilities. And then I take whatever the next right action is, because the universe our world is a perfect feedback loop. If I choose to do something with an upset or an anger and it's not really serving me, I'll know right away. The universe will tell me. So then I'll do something different, like pay attention, kind of.
Yeah. And I think a big issue with a lot of people is they don't feel their feelings. Mm-hmm. They don't feel their feelings. They just stuff their feelings. It's okay to feel that tough part, that tough day, and acknowledge it.
Yes.
And then let it go to the next day. And the older I get, the better I get at it. I think part of it's just maturity. And then I think part of it is just getting in the groove.
Yeah.
Getting in the groove.
Absolutely. And it's okay to have a really tricky day. It's okay to have a tricky week. It's okay. And I try to use words that don't trigger a bigger problem. Like, so instead of saying I'm having a hard day or a bad day, I'll say, well, this is a little tricky, or this is a little challenging, or okay, well, this is a ride. Because those words don't trigger all the rest of my autobiography to bring in everything else that was ever wrong in my life.
Yeah. Instead of sometimes saying, oh, so many people are calling me, I'm so busy, I'm too busy, I say, no, I'm in demand.
Right. And so when you use words that serve whatever the purpose is, then we have more power and more authority over how we experience things. Like Monday's my busiest day of the week. And so some people go, oh my God, you're so busy. I go, I love it though. I love to have connection with people. I love conversations with people. I love my work. I love everything about all of it.
Me too.
I love it. And so then I start my day with doing a Facebook Live, telling everybody whatever spiritual download I get in my meditations in the morning. And then I just go into my day. And by the time it's done, I'm like, wow, what a beautiful, wonderful day. Instead of walking around all stamping my princess foot, it's Monday, I don't like Monday, and oh, by the way, it's raining and I don't like storms, and that does not serve anybody. In fact, it drags everybody down. So,
well, you know how many more muscles it takes to be miserable than to be happy?
Yes.
It takes a lot of work to be miserable.
Yes, and especially to hold on to being miserable over a period of time.
And people don't realize that. And I say to them, do you realize how much work you're putting into being miserable?
Yep.
If you could just put part of that into being positive, or being happier, and sometimes all of a sudden the light bulb goes off.
Right.
And because we just get stuck in those rut, and I hate to say it, we are surrounded by a lot of negative stuff.
We're surrounded by a lot of negative stuff, and we're surrounded in a culture that wants us to stay down and wants us to stay negative. And so we have to wake up for a minute and kind of look around and say, do I really want to live in that trance? Is it really something I want to do? Because most of us don't, but we don't even realize we're stuck in the trance until we are willing to see it and say, wow, everything is negative. Everywhere you look, there's fear. Well, what if I just disengage from that? What if I watch it like a movie? What if I say, well, y'all think what you want to, but I'm doing my thing.
Right.
Then pretty soon our free thinking, healthy, joyful, grateful selves start to emerge.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And we have, like, once again, we have that choice what we're looking for.
Yes.
Where we want to go. And I think people think they don't, but they do.
Total choice.
And you can change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You might think that this was a good choice for me, and just because you made that choice, and now you don't have to be stuck in it. You could say, "Oops, I guess this really wasn't a good choice for me."
Mm-hmm.
And I just need to change something, or maybe it's just tweaking at something. But I think sometimes they get so stuck in it that they can't even see the picture.
Absolutely. Because our ego wants us to say, well, this is the choice you made. You have to stick it out no matter what. Well, it's okay to change your mind. I mean, when I was in seminary and at Unity, and we're looking, and one of the things Charles Fillmore used to always say, which still sticks in my mind, is always reserve the right to change your mind.
Yes.
Even when you're visioning and when you're being grateful and you're creating your life and all of the metaphysical things, you can change your mind at any time. So as the universe starts giving you feedback on whatever you've just done or said or thought, if it's not in alignment, change your mind, do something different. It's okay. Like, you don't have to hold on to something toxic just because you've been there a long time.
Somebody said to me recently, well, how do I know what my alignment is? What's my alignment? I said, trust your gut.
Yep.
Trust your gut. Feel your feelings. When you know those feelings. It's like, it's just hard to explain, but those feelings. You're doing the right thing, or you're doing the wrong thing, or you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
You can be all happy on the outside and stuff, but if you're doing it for the wrong reason, that's still on your inside.
And that wrong reason on the inside, which I would call it undisclosed motive, that will show up. That will show up.
Yeah.
That undisclosed motive, that unhappiness will show up because you're holding it in your soul and in your heart. So you're creating that continued unhappiness by keeping yourself split. You're the one creating it when you keep yourself split, not something else outside of you.
Most things we create.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
People think, oh, it just happened, or whatever. No, either whether it's on the top side of the scale or the bottom, either way, it didn't just happen. There was work that went into it.
That's right. Even when we're not paying attention, or even when we don't really know that there was work going into it, there was work going into it, because that's just the way it rolls. Like, and once we realize that, though, there's so much freedom, Linda. There's so much freedom, because now that old, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or I'm stuck, goes away. Now it's like, oh, the world's my oyster. I can shift what I'm thinking about and how I'm speaking and the way I walk. And suddenly, in very short order, I start seeing the change. It doesn't happen in 2 seconds. It takes a little time. But as we start seeing that little bit of hope here, that little bit of thing there, that little bit of optimism there, pretty soon, it's like, oh, now I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to feel when I'm offline, or when I'm out of integrity, or I'm not lined up, because I'm like, whoa, this isn't me.
Yeah, well, I think during COVID, it really kicked a lot of people's behinds, I think, and they felt like they had no choice with anything, and they were living in fear, and they were watching way too much news. There's very little news on in my house. If the world comes to an end, I'm sure one of my neighbors will tell me.
That's how I do it too. I hardly watch any of it, and I always tell everybody, who, especially people addicted to news and all that, is your brain cannot unsee something and cannot unhear it. So if you're putting toxic information in, fearful information in, whether it's accurate or not, it can't undo it. Right. So we don't need to watch it over and over and over again. We can get enough information I have some friends of mine that watch more news than I do. And so I'll just call them every once in a while and say, what's the update?
Exactly.
And in about 3 minutes, I get all that I need to know. And then we can go talk about something else. And I didn't have to watch it and hear it over and over. And now I don't have to evict it from my consciousness. So there's ways that we can be informed and not be in the trance.
Right. And you can be informed once. You don't have to watch the thing 45 times to be informed.
Right. They have it on a loop. It's okay. You don't need to hear it 50 times.
Yeah.
That's not going to change.
No, it's not going to change. So where can our friends find you, Dianne?
Well, they can find me at MsDianneAllen.com, which is my website, or on Facebook, Dianne A. Allen, and Dianne has 2 N's in it. And my company,
your podcast.
My podcast that you're one of the most listened to guests on my podcast too, which I think is really fun. Is called Someone Gets Me. So you can look up the podcast, Someone Gets Me, and listen to Linda and lots of other people. I do interviews every week. I have a different show every week. This week's show is all about how to overcome depression. Ooh. And so I give really tangible ways to help pull yourself out of that depressive place or that malaise that comes especially from COVID. So even if somebody's watching it after this week, that show will be there, but it's really practical. Do these things. These things will help you. And, I've been working with people with these kinds of things for 40 years. So I have a little bit of history and understanding, and I've been really listening to what's working for people. And of course, you can find me on LinkedIn everywhere. I'm like everywhere. My company's name is Visions Applied, and visionsapplied.com is a corporate site that has links to the podcast and my books on it.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for being with me today. Now that you're not in Florida anymore, but you said you're going to come back like once a month.
I'll be back shortly in the next few weeks, and I usually stay for about a week or so.
Or maybe it's over the summer we'll get together.
Oh yes, definitely. We have to go back for a walk where we went before to the Botanical Gardens.
Garden is my favorite place.
It's so beautiful there.
It is. Thank you, my friend. Have a delicious day.
Thank you very much. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.